Welcome to Stumbling Toward Genius. I'm your host, writing and creativity coach, Cynthia Morris. In this episode, you'll hear about how I managed to write and publish my first book, even though there was a time when I couldn't see how it was possible. Having genius ideas is the easy part of creating, right? It's in the making where we stumble. If you're like me, almost right away you bump up against the hows. How do I produce that podcast? How do I design a book? How do I find the right X, Y, or Z to bring my bright idea into form? You have your genius idea and it feels so good. You know the what, you know the why, but then you feel like an ignorant baby lamb when it comes to the how. Who hasn't wanted to give up when faced with the hurdle of technical challenges? In my experience, everything I make requires an up-leveling of my skills. Everything I make grows me. I shed some innocence and mature along the creative continuum. In my early days as a coach, I didn't think I could write a book or create a program. See, my coaching relies on asking powerful questions, on listening, and on helping my clients find the right path through conversations that we have unlike any they have elsewhere. How could I replicate that? Could I write a book of coaching inquiries? How annoyed do you get when you're presented with a series of questions like this? As annoyed as I do? Yeah, so a book of questions? No. It took me some time, a long time, to figure out a way to put what I knew about writing and the creative process into a book. Okay, it was only a few years, but it seemed like a long time. Back when I started coaching in 1999, I had no idea I was going to make a business for 20 years. You know what they say, most businesses don't survive 3 or 5 years. So in 2002, when I was gearing up to write my first book, I focused on the patterns I was seeing in my clients. I took copious notes for my clients during our sessions. By this time, I had a fat stack of notes from sample coaching sessions I had given. I got out that folder. Paging through the notes, I saw patterns. I noticed that people often said the same thing when talking about writer's block. They even used the same words. Here, I could see the universality of our creative challenges. People always said that they wanted to express themselves through writing, that was what was important about writing. And I remember thinking, yeah, everybody says that. And then, boing, duh, one day I realized, yes, everybody says that. Everybody wants to express something through their writing. That is a vital need. That should go on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, for goodness sake. So then, going through the notes, I made lists of the homework that I gave to my clients. Time and again, I offered the same exercises and prompts to help them get off the sidelines and into the writing zone. These were my unique approaches to helping writers. I was starting to feel more confident about the content of my book. Because while each of us are unique little snowflakes, there are patterns. In the book I wrote, Create Your Writer's Life, I emphasized the commonalities among my clients. I included the exercises my clients found most useful. I found that the book didn't need to be long, it just needed to be helpful. But once I had the content and the structure of the book down, there were still mountains to climb. This being my first book, I had no idea how to build one. It was the design and the making of an actual object that I had no clue about. Luckily, I had people. I traded coaching for interior book design because you want somebody who knows how to design a book. Any random designer is not going to know how to design a book. That's important. The person who designed my website and business cards did the cover design of Create Your Writer's Life. It was all coming together. My plan was to publish this as an ebook. Okay, so now we're in 2003 and ebooks, well, do you remember the ebooks you bought in 2003? Yeah, those were early days for buying information products online, and there were hurdles, and I stumbled. So back then, there was no PayPal. There was no easy to use and trustworthy merchant that everyone knows and recognizes. I'm not trying to be all harken back to the horse and buggy days with this story, but in terms of running an online business at this point, I had never accepted money online. People paid me for coaching and workshops with checks in the mail. I don't recall all the nitty gritty details of what was required to set up an online store. I'm sure my mind is blocking out the really painful parts. But I do remember filling out an application for a merchant banking account. This is the account that takes money from people and then brings it back to me. They're also accepting the risk that comes with this sort of anonymous buying and selling. So they wanted to make sure that I was legit. I had to fill out a long application. I had to prove to them that I was not a charlatan and that I did have a legitimate product to sell. And then there were other processes I needed to set up my site. This was Web 1.0, before blogs, before comments, before WordPress, and before interactivity. I was a freaking pioneer. Facing these things was incredibly hard. It's just not in my genius zone to deal with this kind of thing. Setting up my website to sell a book was like climbing a mountain. And despite living in Boulder, Colorado at the time, I was not and am still not a hiker or a climber. I was the fresh, innocent lamb facing the digital lion. I had no idea what I was doing. Do you recognize this feeling of complete ineptitude? You read the requirements of something and you think, OMG, I just can't do it. I was a lamb, remember, not a nimble goat who can easily scamper up difficult cliffs. Luckily, I had a friend who is a nimble digital goat. Carl is a whiz at, well, pretty much everything. And he is a Capricorn, so he can somehow navigate his way through any environment. While I was whimpering and whining, he was like, "No problem, we can do this." So he walked me through the technical processes required to set up the book. He stayed calm when I freaked. He assured me that my book must get out there and that the giant tech mountain was actually really just a small pile of pebbles, and we could kick those challenges to the curb. What a relief to have his support. I got the ebook published. This was before I realized that ebooks are usually short and sweet. People bought it. The system worked. Some people even sent checks. The following year, I worked with another designer to make the book into a paperback. I had it printed locally in Boulder. I sold it at my writing workshops and also online. It felt like a huge triumph to have both a digital and print version of the book out in the world. Years later, the book underwent another rendition as I hired somebody to put it into Kindle format. One of my clients, Sam, faced these technological hurdles. She has a big vision for her website, programs, and books. But when trying to find help to make her dreams real, people kept telling her it wasn't possible. But she persisted. Her vision shifted to accommodate the container. She's still working on her projects, getting closer to finishing and sharing them with the world. She didn't give up, and she doesn't let anyone tell her what she can't do with her projects. Here's what I don't want to tell you. It's still hard for me to make things. This podcast had a whole range of tech mountains to climb and emotional hurdles that often felt insurmountable. There have been plenty of projects that I've had to leave at the side of the road because I couldn't overcome the challenges. I have to live with the fact that not every idea or project needs to make it into the world. Our work is to be clear on the ones that are worth fighting for and to get the help we need to bring our genius out. This project made me more humble. I realized that there were just going to be things I needed to ask for help with. I learned that I didn't have to freak out if I didn't know the answer to something. Someone else would know, and I can always reach out for help. There will always be things we don't know how to do, but being ignorant doesn't mean being stupid or helpless. Create Your Writer's Life is still available, and it's still helping people get started with their writing life. I often refer to this book, and I have used its chapters as lessons and courses that I've taught online and in person. Getting your ideas into form means you can then continue to put them into other forms that people can access. If you're like me, it's redonkulously hard to ask for help. But the truth is, we really can't go anywhere in our creative projects without it. We simply don't have all the perspectives and skills required to pull something off. If you've written the acknowledgement page of a book, you know how real the "it takes a village" concept is. I invite you to look for things that are empowering about asking for help. For me, I feel so connected when I get help. And I've come to love collaborating with others on my creative projects. There will always be things we don't know how to do, but being ignorant doesn't mean being stupid or helpless. There are always ways to get help and to learn. Your assignment. This week's creative competency is getting help for the things that are not in your genius zone. Before we go to the get help part, call to mind projects that you didn't finish or maybe didn't even start. Make a list of these abandoned projects. Then, if any guilt, shame, or remorse comes up, forgive yourself for not finishing. Not every project needs to be brought to life. Set aside the projects that sounded good but didn't make it. Then, look at the one that still sparkles and makes your heart race. This is the project you know you must do. Stumbling Toward Genius was a book idea I had in 2001, and then I pecked away at it for a little bit in 2008. When I was looking for a name for my podcast, this old idea resurfaced. I knew it was right. What's on your list that feels that same kind of right? What's the right project for you now? And what help do you need to reunite with it? You might have to hire somebody, pay money, I know, or maybe do a trade. When I first started out, I traded coaching for my website and business cards. Make a list of any technological or other obstacles that have been stopping you. And then next to those items, list who can help you get past that now. If you've been stuck at the bottom of the tech mountain, call on a Sherpa. Don't let those annoying obstacles stall your genius. You will love the relief of having support to work through the things that aren't in your genius zone. Head over to originalimpulse.com/podcast to download this week's assignment. Email me or leave a comment with insights you glean or actions you take as a result of the assignment. You'll find my contact info at originalimpulse.com. Thank you for listening to Stumbling Toward Genius. I hope this episode has helped you find your way toward your own genius, and that you bravely take on your creative projects no matter how much you stumble or how scary it is. Until next time, creative genius, have fun.
Hello, it's Xavier, but you know me now, you can call me Zav. I just wanted to add a little bit to this episode, something about these technical hurdles or these obstacles that we all face. It's so true, everybody has to deal with something like this, whatever project it is. But the thing for me, when I'm working on my music, that I don't worry about is that somehow I don't get Somehow I don't get emotional about it. It doesn't mean that I am bad or wrong or stupid because I don't know how to do something. I don't know how to make something. And that's the thing I see happen. I've heard Cynthia, she tells me that people just get way too emotionally attached to their sense of self or their sense of who they are or what they can do just because they do not know how to figure out a little thing. So, just from my point of view, if you can let go of the emotion that's attached to something and just say, oh, I don't know how to do it, I'll figure it out. That would make things a lot easier. Okay, Cynthia, she's coming back. I got to go. Au revoir.